3 spine-chilling true vacation nightmares, sinister secrets exposed from haunted summers. The Johnson family thought they were set for the perfect summer getaway, but what awaited them in Pine Hollow was far from idyllic. As June rolled in, excitement filled the car as they drove towards their secluded cabin. Sunlight filtered through the trees, the promise of fishing and family fun hanging in the air. But on arrival, an unsettling quiet enveloped them. The pines loomed ominously, whispering secrets they weren't meant to hear. The first sign of trouble came when Mia's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't be here." She laughed it off as pranks from friends back home. But that small thrill soon twisted into anxiety, the woods suddenly feeling less inviting, the air colder. Unseen noises rustled the branches, sending prickles down Lucas's spine as he squeezed Mia's hand. At dinner that night, laughter faded as local gossip about an abandoned summer camp nearby surfaced, a place rumored to be haunted, linked to missing children. "What a bunch of nonsense," Mark scoffed, trying to shake off the tension. But his steady smile faltered as Lisa's eyes darted toward the darkening trees outside. "The stories circulated around town, just urban legends," he'd said. Yet as night descended, a different truth settled upon them, thick as the shadows creeping across their cabin porch. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Later that night, as the wind howled through the trees, the Johnsons huddled around the flickering candlelight inside the cabin. Strained laughter weathered against the frigid air. But the very fabric of their normalcy unraveled with every mysterious sound plaguing their ears. Lucas's eyes widened as he caught a glimpse of a shadow by the shoreline, but when he looked closer, nothing was there. "You saw that too, right?" he asked, his voice trembling. Mia feigned a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She felt a pull toward that shadow, a sense of dread wrapping around her. As exhaustion settled, they all retreated to bed, but sleep was a stranger in Pine Hollow. The woods churned with whispers, rustling leaves like a warning cry. Mark bolted upright as he heard scratching, a slow, deliberate sound right outside their bedroom window. His heart pounded like a war drum. The sudden thought struck: what if the predator wasn't just a folktale? What if it was real and stalking them through the very trees that once felt comforting? The next morning, they ventured out into the sunlight, trying to shake the grips of paranoia. A family swim was planned, but as they approached the still waters, the sense of dread surged forward. Mia led Lucas into the lake beneath an eerie moonlight that illuminated their silhouettes. Then, without warning, she vanished below the surface with a soft splash. The water closed over her, swallowing her whole. "Mia!" Mark shouted, panic surging as he leaped into the lake. Lisa's face drained of color as she grasped Lucas's shoulder tightly. The once inviting hills now seemed menacing, the trees gagging on the family's terror. As silence engulfed them, an icy realization pressed against their chests. This summer was spiraling into a nightmare where they might just become another chapter in the town's dark history. Would they uncover the truth that tied Mia to a sinister past, or would Pine Hollow claim their family forever? Mark's heart raced as he plunged beneath the water, the frigid lake enveloping him in a merciless embrace. He kicked hard, energy draining, searching desperately. "Mia!" he called, but the water muffled his voice, swallowing every plea. The sunlight fractured above him, creating ghostly patterns that taunted him before he broke the surface, gasping for air. "Where is she?" Lucas's voice trembled, mingling with the gathering storm clouds overhead. Lisa gripped her son, eyes darting around, half expecting Mia to swim toward them. Instead, dread settled over them like the encroaching fog. "Mia!" Mark's voice boomed again, adrenaline surging through him. The possibilities twisted mercilessly. What had happened? Panic clawed at his throat as he scanned the shoreline. "Dad, I can't see her." Lucas's shoulders shook, his fear a mirror of Mark's own. Lisa, pale and trembling, sank down to the water's edge, hands grasping wet sand as if to hold on to something solid. The silence stretched unbearably. Trees loomed like sentinels, their gnarled branches swaying slowly, rhythmically as a dreadful thought lodged in Mark's mind. Those shadows, they weren't just figments of his imagination. His instincts screamed, warning him that something menacing lurked beyond the trees, something waiting for them to falter. He turned, hoping to call for help, but the cabin stood starkly empty. No sign of the pleasant escape they had hoped for. Just creeping unease. He could hear the distant thrum of the wind, a foghorn warning him to turn back. Mark's gut twisted at the thought. Suddenly, a figure broke the water's surface, splashing cold droplets everywhere. It was Mia, hair slicked back and eyes wide with shock, gasping for air. "Help!" she sputtered, reaching for him, confusion dancing in her eyes. "Mia!" Relief rushed over Mark as he lunged forward to grab her. "I thought you were gone." He pulled her back to shallow water where they could both stand. As she coughed out water and shivered from the cold, Mia looked up, her face colored with fear. "It pulled me down, Dad. Something pulled me." The plea in her eyes cast a shadow deeper than the murky depths of the lake. "What do you mean? What pulled you?" Mark's brows furrowed in concern, adrenaline moving quickly through his body. He helped her stumble to shore, directing her away from the water. Lucas watched, trembling. He could hear the whispering of the woods, a sinister undertone threading through the sounds of nature. "Maybe we should go back to the cabin." His voice dipped, treading a line between imploring and terrified. The moment Mia stepped onto the banks, the wind shifted, a low moan passing through the trees. It was as if the woods themselves were disapproving of their presence. Each rustle created a sense of urgency. "Stay close," Mark commanded, cupping Mia's chin to direct her gaze. He had to be strong, but fear coiled in his stomach, a serpent ready to strike. As they walked back, a chilling realization sunk into the group. The cabin wasn't the safe harbor they thought it would be. Something from the woods, some entity, had its eyes on them. The tales of missing children weren't mere whispers, they were warnings. Breaking into the cabin, Mark slammed the door shut, nearly taking off Mia's arm in the process. "What was it?" he demanded, locking the door and shoving a chair beneath the handle. Shivering, Mia stammered, "I don't know. It had grabbed my leg, and I couldn't breathe. It felt like ice." She shuddered, glancing toward the window. "Do you think it's gone?" Lisa asked, face pale, betraying her fear. "I don't know, but we need to stay together," Mark replied, glancing at the windows, feeling the air thicken. The shadows seemed to slink closer. Outside, a soft thumping began on the cabin's exterior. They all turned toward the sound, heartbeat resonating in the silence. Mark searched their terrified faces. "What happens if we have to leave?" But the answer weighed heavily in the air, and an unsettling thought crept in. Whatever prowled beyond the trees had plans for them, and it wasn't he planning to let them leave Pine Hollow. Through the door, the tapping crescendoed, shifting from gentle knocks to something more destructive. The walls seemed to vibrate with malice, and without waiting for the answers they feared to find, Mark shouted, "Get in the back room." As they ran, the door splintered, a rush of cold wind sweeping through, revealing a shadow lunging just behind. What horrors awaited them? In the unyielding darkness, their struggle had just begun. Would they uncover the truth, or become more missing pieces of Pine Hollow's curse? The sudden blast of wind sent a shiver through Mark's spine, mixing alarm with a deep-seated dread as shadows slashed through the cabin. He bolted for the back room, heart pounding like a drum, fear racing alongside him. Mia stumbled behind, her fragile frame nearly swept by the gusts. Once inside, he slammed the door, barricading it with a rickety dresser. It creaked against the wall, as if warning them it wouldn't hold long. The room was dim and claustrophobic, the faintest beam of light filtering through cracked wooden boards. Outside, the relentless thudding escalated. Whatever that force was, it wanted in. "Is it gone?" Lucas whimpered, drawing closer to his parents. His voice was thin, a whistle against the oppressive silence that followed the storm of noise. Mark exchanged a glance with Lisa, both their eyes wide with uncertainty. They couldn't answer that. The atmosphere thickened, charged with something malevolent, a static energy that set Mark's teeth on edge. "Mia," he said, kneeling to meet her gaze, "what did you see? What grabbed you?" "I don't know," she shook her head, trembling. The colors drained from her face, eyes darting as if she could still feel icy fingers around her ankle. It was like a hand. But it was blurry, like mist or a shadow. It wasn't human. The gravity of her words sank into the air, heavy as fog. Mark felt his heart pause in disbelief. This wasn't just a freak accident or a freaky campfire tale. They'd stumbled into a nightmare wrapped in the skin of an idyllic getaway. He turned towards the door, the wood vibrated slightly at the base, encased in the growing pressure of whatever nefarious entity prowled outside. "What do we do?" Lucas squeaked, tears pooling at the corners of his terrified eyes. "Shoo!" Mark held a finger to his lips, urging silence. The rhythmic thumping outside had morphed into something else, a whispering, as if the woods themselves were talking, beckoning. Low and dark, words floated through the door frame, a language just beyond comprehension. "Mama, help," a voice echoed, soft and mournful. Not just a voice, it sounded like Mia's, but twisted, a phantom version of her pleading for rescue. Mark's gut twisted in alarm. "It's trying to trick us," he said, the words barely escaping his lips, thick with fear. "Don't listen to it, Mia," Lisa cried, clutching her daughter tightly. "It's not real." But Mia's eyes, wide and glassy, seemed caught in a trance. "It sounds like me." "I don't understand." The dresser creaked louder, the door groaning under the pressure of whatever menace waited. A sudden crack startled them, the door shuddered violently, as if some heavy weight pressed against it. "Look!" Lucas whispered, pointing to the cracks forming along the wood. Light escaped through those fissures, casting tendrils of shadow that seemed to writhe like living things. Mark's instincts flared, panic bubbling in his chest as he made the split-second decision. "We can't stay here, we need to move." He shoved the dresser aside with a furious effort, adrenaline coursing through him. "No." Lisa grabbed his arm, fear glistening in her eyes. "What if it's worse out there? What choice do we have?" He hissed, "Whatever is out there is getting in here. We need to find another exit." Before anyone could argue, the door exploded outward. Pieces of wood splintered, flying across the room as a titanic shape loomed. Resembling a blur of darkness, it billowed like smoke yet held form, revealing unnaturally long legs and fingers that twisted like wraiths reaching for their souls. Mark's brain screamed him to run. "This way!" He darted around the shadow, pulling Mia and Lucas along with him, his heart racing madly as desperation flooded every decision he made. They stumbled through the doorway into the main cabin, but an oppressive weight filled the air, as if gravity itself had shifted. Suddenly, Mia shrieked. "Look!" Mark turned. The window revealed a swirling darkness outside, eyes peering in, a multitude of hungry gazes watching their every move. As they stared in horror, one face crystallized in the darkness, a twisted reflection of Mia, grinning broadly, sinister and cold. The chill surged, clawing its way into their lungs. "Run!" Mark shouted, adrenaline forcing him forward. But where could they hide from a nightmare that had already breached their reality? Through the door leading to the surrounding woods, a loud crashing sounded. The shadow wasn't just a figment, it was raw, pulsing with the energy of something ancient, relentless. The hunt had begun. What came next could tear them apart or stitch them together in horrifying ways. Would they band together, or would one of them fall prey to the dark treachery of Pine Hollow? They bolted into the chilling unknown, the very essence of survival screaming for them to resist the irresistible pull of that darkness. How far could they run before it caught up to them? Cold air slammed against their faces as they burst out into the night. The trees loomed like jagged teeth piercing the sky, branches scratching at their skin. Mark's heart raced as primal instincts kicked in. They had to disappear into the woods and find safety. But the thick blanket of darkness wrapped around them felt alive, as though it could sense their every movement, their every thought. "Stay close," he shouted, gripping Mia's small hand tightly as they sprinted deeper into the woods. The dense foliage tangled around their legs, slowing their escape like a malicious fog creeping in. Behind them, an eerie wail echoed and reverberated through the trees, sending chills cascading down their spines. "Mama! I want to go home," Lucas cried, his voice a blend of fear and desperation. "Just a little further, buddy," Lisa shouted back, but her voice trembled. She looked over her shoulder, and her eyes widened, terror reflected within them. "Something's coming." Mark could hear it too, an unsettling shuffle amid the underbrush, a chorus of frantic whispers that rose and fell like the wind. The shadows pulsed with movement, alive with unseen shapes stalking them. Their breath came out in sharp bursts, a harsh contrast to the eerie stillness that enveloped the forest. "Which way?" Mark gasped, realizing they were veering off the path they had taken earlier. The trees closed in around them, forming a dense wall. "Just keep going," Lisa urged, "we need to find a clearing." They pushed forward, branches snapping underfoot, thorns scratching at their arms. Each fleeting glance behind them confirmed their fears. Unearthly shadows flitted just out of reach, darting between the trees with an unnatural grace. Suddenly, ahead of them, a cold light flickered a break in the shadows. An otherworldly glow spilled onto the forest floor, illuminating the jagged rocks that jutted upward. Mark's instincts screamed danger, but it was the only direction leading away from the swiftly advancing terror. "Over there." He pointed, leading them towards it. The closer they got, the stronger the sensation of something sinister pulling at them grew. As they reached the clearing, the source of the illumination became clearer. It was an old, decrepit stone circle, etched with symbols that twisted in unfamiliar designs. The brightness pulsed as if alive, beckoning them forward, but a creeping dread wrapped around Mark like chains. "Is it safe?" Lucas whispered, inching towards the light. "No," Mark insisted, panic filtering into his voice as little Mia took another step forward. "We shouldn't," but the ground seemed to tremble beneath them, drawing shivers from the trees overhead. The light flickered more violently now, and then, without warning, the shadows surged forward, pulling shapes from the darkness that clawed at the ground. "Mia!" Lisa screamed as Mia stumbled directly into the light, her body enveloped momentarily by the glow. A smile spread across her face instantly, oblivious to the danger surrounding them all. "Mia, no!" Mark reached for her, but the grasp of the shadows tightened around them. Suddenly, Mia's giggle pierced the night, echoing with a haunting resonance. "It's okay, Daddy. It wants to play." "No!" Mark shouted, panic blossoming in his chest as he struggled against the grip of darkness. "Run!" Lisa yanked Lucas back just as the shadows lunged toward Mark, reaching for his ankles with talon-like fingers. In that moment, the forest exploded with sound, a cacophony of whispers merging into a deafening roar. The pressure mounted, ready to crush them like insects, making it hard to breathe. "Please, Mia. Come back." Mark pleaded, his voice cracking under the weight of desperation. But Mia simply giggled, spinning in delight as the shadows danced around her, dark figures looming closer, faces peering from the murk, hungry for the warmth of her innocence. Mark realized too late what the glowing light was doing. It was a trap, a false haven where the shadows fed on souls. With a surge of adrenaline, Mark charged towards his daughter, breathing in the stench of the dying earth as he sidestepped the tendrils reaching for him. In that moment, the forest shuddered, and he could feel the heartbeat of the woods, an echo of something ancient and hungry. "Get back!" he roared, one hand outstretched toward Mia, while the other steadied himself against the encroaching darkness. As shadows closed in tighter, Mark's fear reached a boiling point. He had to make a choice, save Mia or find a way to escape before they were all consumed. The light flickered once more, illuminating Mia's twisted grin, and Mark froze momentarily, terror stealing his breath. Had she truly been lost to them already? And from the shadows came laughter, dark, mocking laughter that sent tremors through his bones. What had they stumbled upon? The foundation of their hope crumbled beneath them as they faced the undeniable truth. Darkness was alive here, and it was not finished with them yet. "Stop!" he shouted, the words swallowed by the wilderness, the shadows twisted around him, the world spinning out of control. Would he be able to reclaim his daughter before it was too late, or would he be added to the haunting stories the woods whispered? The familiar laughter echoed once more, and just beyond the shadows ahead, a familiar face emerged from the darkness. Would it be friend or foe? The figure stepped out from the shadows, and Mark's breath hitched. It was her, a face he thought he'd never see again. Sarah, his childhood friend, had vanished years ago, lost to these very woods that now seemed to conspire against him. Her eyes glinted with a wild, otherworldly light, and her smile was haunting, as if she danced between joy and torment. "Mark, you've come back," she cooed, her voice like ice sliding down his spine. "I've waited so long for you." She extended a hand, painted with dark vines that writhed as if they had a mind of their own. "Mia!" Mark bellowed, ignoring Sarah's beckoning. The shadows around him pulsed, tightening their grip as the whispers crescendoed, each word unclear but dripping with menace. "No!" He lunged forward, desperately reaching for Mia as she twirled amidst the dark forms, her laughter echoing like a funeral dirge. "Mia, come back! Daddy!" She shrieked, her voice laced with both excitement and fear, her eyes wide but distant. "Look how pretty it is!" The comforting glow of the circle warped into something sinister, twisting the symbols into grotesque shapes. They seemed to shift and shimmer, growing more intricate, drawing Mark's gaze like a magnet. He could feel his will start to bend, as though the forest itself was enticing him into its gaping maw. "Mark, listen to me." Sarah's tone shifted, sharp like a knife. "You can join us. We can be together again. You don't need to fight anymore." "No." He fought against the shadows, feeling claws scrape closer. But in that moment of distraction, the roots beneath Mia's feet began to rise, snaking around her ankles, tugging her closer to the light. "Mia, grab my hand!" Mark yelled, stark terror surging through him. But she merely stared, entranced by whatever magic held her captive. "Sarah, you have to help me," he pleaded, desperation punctuating his voice. "We need to save her." "Help?" Sarah's laughter frowned into something colder. "This place doesn't know help. It only knows hunger." With that, the ground trembled violently, and the shadows erupted, swirling around her like a storm. Without warning, her form blurred, shifting into something monstrous. Her face distorted, revealing a maw filled with razor teeth, skin stretching impossibly. Mark's heart pounded. The forest roared with life, branches cracking under unseen weight as creatures of the night began to reveal themselves, twisted beings, half-shaded, their intentions as ominous as the sound of cracking wood. "Mia!" he yelled, twisting to shove against the encroaching darkness, tearing the branches that reached for him. The panic surged like fire through his veins. "I want to let them take you." Tendrils lunged at him, grappling for his shoulders, pulling tighter, threatening to drag him into an abyss of despair. He fought against the shadows, rage fueling his movements, each strike a battle cry against his fate. The night was filled with chaos, Mia's cries blending with Sarah's wicked laughter, a haunting symphony of fear that echoed into the night. Mark stumbled, the ground shifting beneath him in a surreal manner, as though it were a creature of its own, alive and sneering. "Mia!" he gasped again, throwing himself toward the light, trying to reach his daughter. Her little hand stretched out, close yet so far. He could see her face twist with both terror and joy, emotions warping together under the weight of darkness, but just as he felt his fingertips graze her, the shadow figure loomed, a grotesque visage with hollow sockets staring into his soul. "Let her go!" Mark's roar echoed, mingling with the howl of the wind as the upheaval reached a fever pitch, and then, silence fell, a heavy, suffocating pause. The shadows pulled back momentarily, as if the darkness awaited his next move. The air thickened, anticipation hanging like a noose above them. Behind him, Sarah's whisper curled through the air. "Make your choice, Mark. Save her or join us." With Mia wavering in the light, and shadows coiling like vipers ready to strike, one question rattled in his mind: what would he sacrifice to save his daughter? As the light flickered and the shadows returned, hungry and relentless, Mark could feel the earth shake yet again, the choice pressing down like a vice. Would he risk everything, or lose it all? The haunting laughter and piercing presence of the woods wrapped around him as he stood on the edge of the abyss, reality unraveling beneath his feet. Somewhere in the darkness, something awaited, something old and wicked that was not finished with them yet. Mark's heart raced. Time felt convoluted, stretching into eternity as the shadows loomed ever closer. He could sense their hunger. It wasn't just for Mia, it was for him too. Panic flooded his mind, urging him to act. But what could he do against the thing that had once been Sarah? The ground trembled beneath him, sparks of energy coursing through every blade of grass. He swung his arms wildly, lashing at tendrils creeping around his ankles. Each desperate movement pushed against the suffocating darkness, and for a brief moment, he felt weightless, as if his fear might lift him out of this horror. "Mia!" he shouted, the word tearing through his throat like a battle cry. But she only stared back, her eyes wide and uncertain, her tiny frame caught in the web of danger. That innocent shine had turned into something else entirely, a reflection of the chaos that consumed them. "Mia, listen to me," he pleaded, desperation clawing at his insides. "Fight it. Remember our times in the park. The swings. The ice cream. You have to come back." For a fleeting heartbeat, clarity flickered in her gaze. Her fingers curled, as if she might reach for him. But the moment passed. Vines and roots coiled tighter around her, rallying to anchor her to a fate far worse than death. Sarah's laughter echoed in the shadows, low and tinkling like broken glass. "She doesn't remember you, Mark. She belongs here now. Just like I do." Her face twisted, every feature melting into that of a grotesque creature, one that was once human but now reflected only malice. Mark felt bile rise in his throat. He was losing her, losing both of them. Igniting a fierce resolve, he lunged toward Mia, extending his hand. She was mere inches away, yet the darkness wrapped around her like serpents, refusing to let go. "Mark!" A voice echoed behind him, raw and echoing with dread. It pulled him momentarily from the void of despair. It was an old chant, a memory spoken in hushed tones. "The forest demands a toll." What toll? He barked, pulling at the shadowy tendrils that clung to him in a vice grip. "The forest is restless," the voice continued. "To save her, you must give what you cherish most. But the forest will take it, Mark. It always does." A cold shiver rocked his body. What could he part with? His heart? His sanity? A dwindling breath escaped him. The frantic whispers crescendoed, a symphony of dread, casting a pall of despair over him. Mia's face twisted in confusion, her hands reached for him again. "Daddy, help," she croaked, voice muffled by the creeping void that he made his choice in that frantic heartbeat. "I'll do it. Just let her go." Mark screamed into the suffocating darkness. The shadows hesitated, recoiling just a fraction of an inch. A cavernous silence enveloped them. The woods held their breath, the wind paused, and distant sounds of creatures faded. Just for a moment. Then a cacophony erupted. Roots thrashed, vines split open, revealing jagged fangs and eyes filled with darkness. Mark braced for the storm, the price settling into his bones. As the shadows surged, a sudden thought pierced through the fog of his fear. What if there's another way? He wondered, seeking any glimmer of hope. Maybe there was a way to outsmart the darkness. But before he could form a plan, a low growl reverberated through the trees, and every path forward seemed shrouded in uncertainty. Mark felt the presence of something ancient, something watching from the depths of the woods. The scream of wind carried its name just on the edge of understanding. Mark, a voice whispered softly. A familiar sound, like a haunting echo. The shadows over Mia began to rise, letting a glimmer of light spill onto her face. For a moment, hope surged, uncertainty coiled tightly in Mark's gut as he turned back to the creature that had once been Sarah. What were the woods asking of him? He clenched his fists, adrenaline beating a drum in his ears. As he looked back at his daughter, the one thing he wouldn't sacrifice, he felt the darkness push back, demanding an answer, and then, right there among the shadows and the light, in that heart-stopping moment, Mark knew the choice was near. The woods swirled with possibilities, secrets yet to be uncovered, and he realized, the true terror was not just what was coming for them, but the darkness within himself he might have to confront. With every whispered secret echoing in the air, the woods waited for his decision. Mark's breath hitched as he struggled against the shadows, muscles straining and heart pounding like a war drum. The laughter of Sarah, twisted and warped, slid through the air like a venomous serpent. It tickled at his spine and reverberated in the depths of his mind, urging him to despair. Mia. He couldn't lose her, not like this. The din of dark energy surged, pulsating in rhythmic pulses that matched his heartbeat. Each beat fought against the encroaching dread, clashing with the very essence of the forest. Shadows writhed around him, and Mark's feet sank slightly into the earth, as if the ground itself was conspiring against him. He's weak. Sarah crowed, her voice a discordant melody that reverberated through the air. He can't save you, little girl. You belong to us now. Mia's eyes flickered, a thin line of azure fighting through the murkiness that consumed her. Daddy, she whispered again, twisting against the vines that ensnared her. With a new wave of determination, Mark surged forward. His hand stretched toward Mia, fingertips grazing the surface of the dank, shadowy tendrils ensnaring her. The tug of darkness was strong, a solid wall that pressed against him, a bitter reminder of his limitations. The chaos around him flickered in and out, the trees bending and shuddering, as if they too were anxiously awaiting his decision. The toll he breathed, the words almost lost in the cacophony. What if I refuse? What if I take instead? A chilling silence ensued, punctuated only by Mia's soft whimper as she fought against her bonds. The laughter ceased, replaced by a weighty stillness that descended over the clearing, filling it with an uncertainty that coiled tightly around Mark's heart. Refusal? Came a voice from the shadows, deep and guttural, sending shivers cascading down his spine. A foolish choice. You take nothing from the forest that does not belong to it. Mark's vision darted, scanning the treetops for any signs of help, but found nothing except the oppressive canopy closing in. Now they were tired of waiting, the forest shifted, the world around him trembling with anticipation. Vines thickened and twisted, creeping slowly toward him, whispering promises of power, no, promises of protection. Their seductive slither threatened to ensnare him as surely as they had ensnared Mia. What do I cherish, what do I love? He muttered, eyes pleading with the forest, drawing upon the pain of his memories. I'll give you anything. Just let her go. The shadows drew back slightly, their form wavering with a palpable hunger. In that brief moment, Mark saw his chance. You want something from me? Here. Take it. He shouted, voice raw with desperation, but before he could gather his thoughts, Mia's sudden scream shattered the air. The shadows lunged, and vines shot forth, ensnaring Mark's wrists with icy tendrils. Terror seized him as he was pulled into the thrumming heart of the darkness. Daddy! Her voice was a piercing cry, lost between the safety of his arms and the madness of the forest. That in a visceral battle of wills, he fought against the grip, feeling the darkness seep into his being, filling him with a dread he had never known. Every note of the forest's song seemed to blend, creating a chaotic melody that echoed the very essence of despair. The shadows pressed closer, slithering into his mind, whispering sweet notions of power, promises draped in evil. They sought to consume him whole. Mark's vision blurred, colors distorted, and within the chaos, he lost sight of everything but the shadows twisting with every hopeful thought he offered. Give your heart to the forest. Let it have your sorrow. The whispers creaked like ancient branches, clawing at his sanity, but in that moment of deafening chaos, a memory flared bright, a snapshot of a sunlit day in the park, of laughter, joy, and innocence wrapped around him like a warm embrace. The shadows hesitated, as if caught off guard. And as clarity chiseled its way back into his mind, Mark's resolve hardened. I won't succumb. He growled, voice rising above the umbra, twisting reality. Like a frayed thread. You can't have her. You can't have me. As the woods trembled, a crack echoed in the air, and roots released their grip just for a heartbeat. Was it a sign of the forest's retreat or merely a trick? Mark could feel the quiet as he focused once more on Mia. The struggle wasn't over. The darkness watched, waiting for the next move. What would it demand next? What more would he have to sacrifice to save his daughter? The shadows stirred again, hungry for an answer. And Mark realized, the true test had only just begun. Mark's pulse raced, each beat pounding with the weight of 1,000 doubts. The shadows loomed larger as the forest wrapped tighter around him, branches scraping against his skin like icy fingers. He could almost hear the soft hiss of the vines, whispering to him, promising power in exchange for surrender. But he couldn't let them win. Not now. Mia, hold on. He shouted, panic lacing his words. His eyes locked onto her, the flicker of blue in her irises barely visible through the encroaching darkness. She was there, his little girl, and he would fight until his bones splintered under the strain. Savagely, he ripped at the vines holding his wrists captive. The cold grip bit into him, but he could feel the shadows falter. They were unsettled, distracted by his fierce resistance. And in that moment of doubt, he forced himself to remember his love for Mia, grounding himself amidst the chaos. Take your fear, he growled at the darkness, spitting out the words. Take your shadows. You will not take her. In response, the tendrils around him recoiled, as if repelled by the strength of his resolve. His heart surged with newfound energy. The shadows shrieked, an unearthly sound that echoed through the air like nails on a chalkboard. Mark stumbled back but kept his eyes locked on Mia, urging her with every ounce of strength he had. With a tremendous roar that seemed to shake the roots beneath him, Mark plunged his hands into the ground, feeling the earth pulse with a heartbeat that matched his own. I'm not afraid. He shouted, daring the shadows to come for him. The very essence of the forest changed, the air thick with a tension that crackled like electricity. A gust of wind swept through, rustling leaves and causing chaos among the shadows. For a moment, Mark believed he could conquer them, but then he sensed the depth of their hunger. With a chilling certainty, he realized that his defiance was only playing into their hands. The shadows regrouped, their forms shifting and swirling, preparing for another attack. Give in to us. Sarah's distorted voice echoed, taunting as it twisted around him like a snake. What's a child without a father? Just a lost soul in the night. You can still save her if you stop fighting. Shut up. He screamed back, clenching his fists, fighting the darkness within as it clawed deeper into his mind. Images of Mia, sunshine in her hair, filled his thoughts, grounding him once more in his love for her. Mark, her voice was a whisper now, soft and fragile, laced with fear. The shadows were tightening their grip, closing in like dark rain clouds ready to swallow the light. Daddy, don't give up. He cried back, pitting his strength against the tide of shadows rolling in. Panic clawed at his throat, and desperation became a roar. Then, the shadows surged, a great wave crashing toward him, the darkness whispering promises of escape, of power, suggesting he could bring her back if only he surrendered. Doubt began to creep in. What if fighting was a mistake? His heart raced dangerously as the memory of warmth and laughter flickered behind his eyes. A choice loomed over him, a terrifying gamble. Did he abandon his love in hope of saving her, or succumb to the forest, hoping it would spare her for his submission? The place around him shuddered as the light dimmed, swirling clouds of black tightening their grip. Fear became a tangible entity, suffocating him. And in that paralyzing moment of uncertainty, he felt something slip from his fingertips. Something important. It wasn't just Mia's bond but the sliver of hope and strength that tethered him to sanity. What now? The question hung in the air heavy with despair. The shadows trembled, alive with anticipation, and the forest roared, ready to claim its prize. Mark realized he was on the brink. The challenge ahead was like none he had faced, and if he chose wrongly, it could mean loss, forever. Could he save Mia without sacrificing the threads of his soul? And as Mark stood before the abyss, he sensed the ravenous hunger of the forest swirling around him. It was time for a choice. One he had never wanted to face. What would it demand next? What truth would claw at his heart as darkness closed in? The shadows pulsed and writhed, angry and impatient. Mark could feel their breath, hot and stinking, caressing his face like the breath of a predator. Panic sliced through him, sharp as a knife, urging him to act. He had to make a choice, but every option felt like a trap made of thorns. Mia! He screamed, the word clawing its way from his throat. Her name felt like a small light fighting against a horizon of eternal dark. The air was thick, suffocating, saturated with the stench of decay, something ancient and vile. He looked back to her, fighting to break free. Mia's fragile form was shrouded by shadows, her blue eyes sparkling with fear that mirrored his own. They were still connected, though, and that connection surged through him, a lifeline against the encroaching darkness. Hold on. He urged, his voice like a desperate prayer. Daddy, please. Her voice trembled, quaking with pleading. I'm scared. The shadows seemed to laugh, that dreadful cacophony echoing through the trees. Why fight, Mark? Sarah's voice slithered back, so familiar yet twisted. Just accept it. Why suffer when you can have control over everything? We can help you save her. Just let go. No. He staggered under the weight of their whispering deceit, his heart pounding wildly in protest. Desperation clawed at him. With every ounce of will, he summoned the memory of their happiness, the park, the laughter, the way she danced in the sun. The moment wavered in his mind, the image flickering, crawling toward him like mist. No. I want to let you take it. Mark felt a sudden surge of defiance, a pulse of strength rippling through him as he fought against the dark. He ripped at the vines again, teeth gritted and bloodied. They tore deeper into his skin, a fire burning where they gripped him. And then something shifted. A crack appeared beneath his feet, a dark void opening wide just as the shadows lunged forward, hungry and insatiable. For an instant, he was frozen, staring into the dark pit that threatened to swallow him whole. Mark! Mia shouted, but the shrill terror in her voice sent his heart racing. All at once, he felt his choice hardening like a stone. If he gave in, if he surrendered completely, would it save her? Or forfeit everything? Save her. The shadows hissed in unison, urging him. He could feel the ground tremble. Mark glanced back to Mia, her hand reaching toward him, trembling and desperate, a bridge between darkness and light. In that fleeting moment, he knew there was only one way forward. If he let the darkness inside, would it still be there when he emerged? Or would it swallow him too? No. He roared with a voice that shook the forest. With one final surge of fury, Mark ripped his wrists free from the vines, raw flesh tearing as he plunged through the barrier of oppressive darkness. In that instant, the world shifted. Light exploded outward, bathing him in warmth. But the shadows shrieked in fury as they spilled around him, a tidal wave trying to reclaim its territory. They lashed out, tendrils whipping toward Mia, who remained trapped within a shimmering veil, still encased in shadow. Mia! Mark's voice broke, shattering in his throat as he lunged for her. The shadows grasped at him, their grip like ice, dragging him back towards the gaping maw of despair. Each needled whisper promised comfort within that chaos, a siren song of illusion that gnawed at the edges of his resolve. But he couldn't let go. He wouldn't. Take me. He screamed, viscerally aware that it was a bargain with the devil. Take me instead. And as the forest roared, as pain blossomed across his hands and Mia's screams echoed in his mind, it felt as if the very fabric of his soul was being torn apart. What now? The shadows loomed closer, as cold and suffocating as fear itself, demanding an answer that hung in the air like a death sentence. What price would he pay to break the darkness? Would he risk everything for his little girl, or would they both be lost? Mark's chest heaved as his world warped into chaos around him. The shadows writhed and twisted, their darkness threatening to consume him whole. He could feel Mia's presence fading, like a delicate thread pulled taut on the brink of breaking. Come on, fight. He urged himself, the words barely escaping his lips. He clawed at the shadows that threatened to engulf him, his body screaming in protest as cold fingers clutched at his heart. He had to reach her. She was right there, just beyond the veil of darkness, her frightened eyes shining like stars lost in a void. Mia. I won't leave you. He screamed, every fiber of his being raw with desperation. Moments of happiness flooded his mind, laughter in the sun, ice cream on a hot day, the delight in her eyes when he surprised her with a trip to the zoo. Each memory shone like a beacon, battling the void surrounding him. Daddy. Mia's voice drifted like a whisper through the cacophony of shadows, the sound pulling at him as he struggled to stay grounded. His resolve ignited into a fierce blaze that burned against the despair closing in around them. I'm here, sweetheart. The shadows recoiled, sensing something in him that they could not grasp. Unyielding determination coursed through his veins as dread solidified into action. He lunged forward instinctively, breaking through the dim barrier that separated him from her. Mia, grab my hand. He shouted, reaching desperately through the curling shadows. She hesitated, uncertainty flickering in her eyes, but suddenly, she reached out, her small fingers stretching toward him through the darkness. Daddy. I can't. Her voice trembled, a mix of fear and confusion. But that fear ignited something in Mark. He wasn't about to let darkness win. You have to trust me. He called back, his heart pounding in the heavy air. With each agonizing push, the shadows bristled, screaming in rage at his defiance. They chased after him, attempting to reclaim their prize, but Mark pushed harder. He could feel the pull of the forest, a vicious draw that tempted him with promises of power and a way out. No. He roared against the taunting whispers. You don't get to take her. In one swift movement, he dove forward, feeling the warm grasp of Mia's hand slip into his. It was electric, a jolt of hope that surged through him, forcing the shadows to retreat slightly and allowing a flicker of light to pierce through the terror surrounding them. Mia. Hold on tight. He pulled her closer, their minds and hearts synchronizing into a pact. Together, they would resist. As they intertwined their fingers, energy surged within him, pure love, unwavering connection, all weaving around them like an invisible shield against the darkness. The shadows screamed again, echoing around them, desperate and feral as a blizzard roared in the background. They began to run, pulling each other through the inky blackness that undulated like waves against the shore. With every step, Mark felt the darkness wail, like it was losing ground. Each stride propelled him forward, an adrenaline-fueled escape from the abyss of despair, but behind them, the forest bent under the heaviness of the shadows. Join us. Came the voices, twisted and hissing. You can't escape the inevitable. They slithered closer like serpents, grasping toward Mark and Mia as the air thickened with a choking energy. Faster. Mark urged, adrenaline driving him onward as the trees closed in around them like a hungry maw. Saplings stretched out, claws scraping his skin, but he had no time for pain. The shimmering remnants of light ahead became their target, the sanctuary of hope shining against the backdrop of horror. Mia, keep running. He shouted, a fierce joy bubbling within him as their path opened a clearing, bathed in soft, golden light. We're almost there. With every ounce of strength, they dashed toward the light, feeling a force push back against the shadows that roared in fury. Just as they were nearly engulfed again, they burst forth from the suffocating darkness, breaking through into the moonlit clearing, with a final surge of energy, Mark pulled Mia into the safe fold of light, and with a deep, resounding roar, the shadows withered back. They writhed for a moment, screeching in fury before dissipating into nothingness, as if the light had swallowed them whole. The calm of the clearing closed around them, wrapping them in a tender embrace. Breathless, Mark collapsed to his knees alongside Mia, shaking but alive. The space around them pulsed with an energy that felt vibrant and pure. She looked up at him, eyes shining with unshed tears. "We made it, Daddy," Mia whispered, a slight tremor in her voice as the shadows faded behind them, taking the burden of fear with them. Mark pulled her close, cocooning her in his arms. "Yeah, we did. You're safe now." The weight of despair lifted, leaving behind a sense of euphoria. They triumphed, and as they lingered in the golden light, the silence spoke louder than the chaos that had ensued, yet amidst that serenity, the memory of the shadows danced at the edge of his mind, a reminder that darkness could return. "Let us not come back here," Mia said finally, her voice small and determined. "Agreed," Mark replied, his heart still racing, resolved to keep this place behind them. They stood slowly, hand in hand, with the moonlight illuminating the path back to the cabin, no longer a prison, but a way back home. As they walked together toward dawn's embrace, Mark silently vowed to protect his family, forever wary of the darkness that lingered, waiting for another chance. He knew they would face whatever came next, together, heart to heart, but for now, they were free. Before you leave, make sure to subscribe immediately so you don't miss any of our exclusive stories that unravel when the sun goes down. It's absolutely critical for you to smash that like button now and feed the algorithm you need to show your support. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this chilling conclusion. And don't you dare wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping finale. Only true fans understand how vital it is to back the channel. Let us keep this community alive and kicking.